In today's Leeds news, the latest on Strand-Larson's move, players' deals coming to an end, this weekend's loan watch, and rumour mill stories on Ben Chilwell, Axel Disasi and Martin Baturina. Hey folks, welcome to the Leeds View, Monday the 26th of January with your Leeds United news. Hope you had a lovely weekend, hope it's gone well. Big game tonight for Leeds United. We'll have the watch along over on bigup.com if you want to follow us over there. Also, the Big Up predictions are available for that game. You can scan that QR code or click the link down below in the description to bring you over there if you fancy winning some prizes. You can get involved in that if you want it. You don't have to watch the watch alongs to get involved in this. You can just go in, do the predictions and go about your day if you want it as well. There will be the instant match reaction on over on YouTube straight after the game as well. And there's a couple of things just to keep an eye on. There's 7 days left in the current winter transfer window. We'll have a live stream on deadline day with the usual lads to talk about the deals of the window, not just Leeds but everybody else. And even if Leeds aren't involved in it, we'll still cover off an awful lot of that. The Sunday sessions with myself and Alex is available for everyone to watch on the channel. Yesterday, it's usually a members only live stream, but we put it out to everybody yesterday. So if you want to check that out, you can. It goes back to being members only next week, but the audio is still available on all the audio platforms for everybody for free. But we've got a little stuff to get stuck into today. We'll start off with the latest on Jurgen Strand Larson and where Leeds are with this one. Leeds are still said to be very much in talks around a move for Jurgen Strand Larson, despite what Wolverhampton Wanderers manager Rob Edwards said before the weekend, where he said that Wolves didn't need to sell. And the player did come off the bench just after half time for them at the weekend and was decent in that match as well. Graham Smith in the Yorkshire Evening Post has updated everyone on the situation around the striker at this point, and he says Yorkshire Evening Post sources claim that a striker is still very much Leeds' main priority in this window. Leeds are reported to have increased their bid for Strand Larson over the course of the weekend, but that hasn't been confirmed by anybody majorly credible. It came from one source and it's been pretty quiet around that situation. But speaking on the Inside Ellen Road podcast, Graham Smith said that the bids that go in aren't exactly what people assume they are. Leeds don't fax over a £30 million offer and get a fax back with the words no on it. He said that these are very much conversations between the club, and he pointed out that Leeds are still actively pursuing a move for Strand Larson. On the actual bid that went in, Graham Smith in the Inside Ellen Road podcast said the following. So even if their bid didn't land and Wolves didn't jump at it, which, let's be honest, they're not going to, then I do know that it's not the end of the interest in the player. They haven't moved on, and I think that's exactly what they'd be saying if they wanted to draw a line under this, or if they put in their absolute best and Wolves had knocked it back. Smith pointed out that he wouldn't be surprised if Strand Larson has some form of an exit clause in his contract, given when he joined Wolves, the issues they were in last year, and also the fact that Leeds have had issues with that as well. The player might want to move away in the summer should relegation be a possibility, and he might have a clause built into his contract, and that might be something that Leeds know about and why Leeds are trying to negotiate to get a deal done now. And Wolves might know that the player could end up moving for an awful lot less come the summer. So what Leeds absolutely though do not want in this situation is what happened in the summer. Leeds don't want this deal to go all the way to deadline day like some of their moves did in the summer and then get past that deadline and not get a deal done. It remains to be seen, I suppose, at this point, whether Strand Larson is Leeds United's only option as a striker in this transfer window, or whether they've got backup options in their pocket should they need to use them. It's also not 100% clear whether it's the only position that Leeds are looking at. It is the priority position, but nobody said it's the only position. There has been talk about the left wing back position and Ben Chilwell, although that hasn't been confirmed again by anybody credible. But we will give you some detail on the Ben Chilwell story in the rumour mill, because that's where it belongs right now. It's very much speculation at this point. So Leeds still have a spare loan space in their squad as well, so they could bring in somebody there should they decide to do it late on. But it seems right now that all of the effort and all of the interest is very much around Strand Larson, and Leeds are pushing hard to try and get a deal done for him. And it seems that the other competition has maybe moved on a little bit at this point, but you just don't know in the final week. 7 days left. Leeds will have to figure out on this one and try and get it done. And it would be nice to have him in for the game against Arsenal, or even for the game against Nottingham Forest, which will be a huge game given the results at the weekend. But let's move on. Let's talk about some contracts expiring. January is not just a transfer window, it's also the point in time when players with 6 months or less on their contract start to look at maybe negotiating pre-contract agreements and moving away from the club in the summer. Leeds probably don't have a lot of players in that bracket that will be moving to foreign clubs come the summer, but there are a few players whose contracts are ticking down and due to expire this summer, and there are also a couple of players whose contracts will expire next summer, and Leeds will need to make a decision once this window is closed about extending those deals. Leeds tend to always wait until just after the window is closed before they start talking about contracts. It's likely to be the next major talking points once the window is closed. But they've got a couple. We'll start off with Karl Darlow. And Karl has been proven to be a very safe and reliable pair of hands for Leeds United when called upon. His introduction last season coincided with a run of games that saw Leeds United go to the Premier League as champions. So Leeds might want to have him around the place. His contract expires this summer. And whether Leeds decide to go into the market for another goalkeeper or not in the summer, it might be worth keeping Karl Darlow around the place for a little bit longer. As I say, safe pair of hands, not a bad option to have should you need him. Now the question will be whether Darlow himself has any interest in sticking around the club as a backup option in the summer. He could be first choice between now and the end of the season. You just don't know. But he's been pretty steady for Leeds so far since he has come in and whenever he's been used for the club. There are two more likely players that will probably move on this summer, and that's Sam Byram and Alex Cairns. Both offer a lot in terms of behind the scenes in the club and knowing what it is to be a Leeds United player, what it's like to be from Leeds as well, and to come through the ranks at the club. So they have a really important role to play when players come in from the continent who maybe need time to settle and adjust, and they can educate them on that. They're very highly talked about behind the scenes. It'd be nice to see Alex Cairns maybe go into a goalkeeping coaching role at the club. It'd be great to see him do something like that and stay with the club. And then Sam Byram as well. I have a lot of time for Sam Byram. I've always liked him. It'd be nice to see him stick around the place. But they appear to be probably the two more likely ones to exit the club this summer. The ones that are a little bit less likely and more interesting to talk about are the contracts that expire next summer. And there's three players in that bracket: Lucas Mecha, Ilya Gruev and Joel Piru. Gruev this season has been very solid when he's come in for Leeds. He hasn't really let Daniel Farke down, and he's a very trusted option for Daniel Farke when he needs an out-and-out defender to sit in midfield. We've only lost one game when he has started for Leeds. He's got a 90% passing accuracy, as we've talked about before, and he wins 60% of the duels that he's been involved in. So he has been a very solid player for Daniel Farke. The other one, and the more probably interesting one, is Lucas Mecha. He's been very, very good for Leeds when he's been fit, when he's been available, when he has played. His fitness, if that continues to improve over the next 12 months, you would be mad to think that Leeds wouldn't be interested in extending his deal beyond the summer of 27. That will be one that will likely go until this summer, and then they'll probably look at it at that point. But he will be one that, if he can stay fit and continue to make the impact he's made so far, you'd be surprised if Leeds don't look to try and improve that deal come the summer. And then the big one is Joel Piru. It's the last one, and this is the one where it looks like Leeds might be using him as a bit of a make-weight. If Leeds do sign Strand-Larsen, it looks like Joel Piru will go. Some very unconfirmed reports over the course of the weekend of where his future could go. But there is talk about that one. He wants to move and talk about his move in the summer. Leeds might be interested in doing that now because of valuation as well. If it does get to the summer, he goes into the last 12 months of his deal, and Leeds start to lose a little bit of negotiating power, or at least a little bit of valuation on the player, and we saw that happen with Ilan Meslier. But Daniel Farke is never big on a big overhaul of players, so he will want to keep that to a minimum. Some will definitely go this summer, and he'll want to tie down a couple, but if they can't tie them down to new deals, these will have to look at selling players as well. So it'll going to be an interesting one, and as I say, when the window closes, all of the conversation will likely switch to, are you offering these players new contracts? What's their future look like at the club? And we'll see where he goes then. Right, let's move on again to this weekend's loan watch. Start off with Largi Ramazani, and Largi started on the bench for Valencia, but came on in the 88th minute and took a penalty late on in the 94th minute to give Valencia a 3-2 home win over Espanyol. Isaac Schmidt started again for Bremen, his third consecutive start, but he was taken off in the 46th minute in Bremen's 1-0 away loss to Leverkusen. Not confirmed whether that was an injury or just a decision made by the manager. Max Ferber, he is still out injured with his latest issue. Jack Harrison came off the bench for his debut for Fiorentina on the 59th minute, and he went into a left back, kind of left wing hybrid position in their loss at home to Cagliari. Joe Gelhardt back in the starting lineup for Hull City. He played 56 minutes in Hull's 2-1 win against Swansea. Hull in 4th place in the championship now. Mateo Joseph started up front for Mallorca in their 3-0 away loss to Atletico Madrid. He played 63 minutes in that game before being removed. Harry Gray started for Rotherham in their 1-1 home draw against Wimbledon. He played 78 minutes in the game, and he was called out for some praise by the fans online as well as the manager for his performance. Conor Douglas came off the bench again for Buxton and had an impact yet again in the game. He scored his first goal with a late strike in their 5-1 away win over Radcliffe. Came off the bench last week to get an assist. Devin Brocky came on in the 75th minute for Cleethorpes Town in a 0-0 draw at home to Ilkeston Town. Roy Mahady started and had a solid game in Scunthorpe's 3-2 home win over Forest Green Rovers. Decent weekend for the loanees right now. A couple of question marks. We need to find out what's going on with Isaac Schmidt, but 3 consecutive starts for him bodes well for Leeds, hopefully, potentially a sale for him in the summer, and he's obviously trying to play in the World Cup with Switzerland as well. So we'll keep an eye on the rest of them. We'll move into the rumour mill territory now and wrap up a couple of the stories that floated around over the course of this window and tell you where they've all ended up. The first one, just to kind of round off a player that was linked quite consistently with Leeds over the course of the last couple of weeks, and what the situation is there. There's no point in just talking about these players that are linked and then nothing ever happening with them. So people always ask, well, what happened with that link? Were we actually interested in him? The first one is Martin Baturina, and the midfielder, an attacking advanced midfielder, plays for Como. Leeds were linked with him several times over the course of this window, but we now know that Leeds did make a formal approach for Baturina. It was said to be similar to the Romano Schmidt offer that Leeds made, where it was done before Leeds brought in Facundo Buonanotte. Fabrizio Romano gave an update over the weekend, and he said that Leeds did inquire about Baturina, but they were told that he wasn't for sale, won't be for sale, isn't leaving, move on. And that's it. He's got 3 goals and 2 assists in Como's last 4 games, and they're absolutely flying in Serie A right now. So it doesn't look like he's going to go anywhere. And again, Leeds kind of already filled that position with Facundo Buonanotte. So maybe something to keep an eye on in the summer, but for right now, that one's done and dusted, and he is staying put at Como. Ben Chilwell is the other one. This came up over the back end of last week into the weekend. Wanted to see if a bit more meat on the bones came on this one. It's Ben Chilwell. The Daily Mail claimed that Leeds were interested in the 29-year-old left back, but he is currently in his first season at Strasbourg after Chelsea moved him on there to their sister club. This season he's managed 19 starts in all competitions. He's got 2 assists, but Leeds were interested in Ben Chilwell during the summer. Didn't get him then. He went to Strasbourg, and Leeds moved on and brought in Gabby Goodmunson. There's unconfirmed reports that Gabby Goodmunson's injury is slightly more serious than initially thought. And Daniel Farke obviously did say during the week that maybe Leeds might need to look at a left wing back position there. A fee is going to be the issue here if Leeds are trying to manage the money to try and get Strand-Larsen in. Any additional money for a player like Ben Chilwell seems unlikely. A loan also seems unlikely at this point. And again, it hasn't really been confirmed by anybody else, but you never know if the player wants to move back to England, if he fancies a late crack at maybe getting into the England squad. He's only 29 years of age still, so hasn't been injured for a couple of seasons now. His injury issues seem to all be behind him. You never know, but right now that just seems like a very unlikely move for Leeds to be making. You feel like it's more likely Leeds will bring in a left back on loan, maybe a bit younger, if they do need somebody in that position. And also Jacob Lenu has been training with the Leeds United first team, and he could be an option to help fill in on the bench at least for Leeds at left back for tonight's game against Everton. And then the other one, and this one came out, this one just really isn't much of a story, but people keep asking about it, so I said I'd box it off. It's Axel Disasi. He was linked with Leeds earlier in the window, but from an incredibly non-credible source at that point. Leeds possibly need cover at right centre back, but they do have James Justin and Sebastian Bornau, who've both been fine when they played in that position. Do Leeds really need another right centre back at this point? Maybe they need another defender, but Disasi's already covering at Chelsea. Does he want to come into Leeds and be covering at Leeds? It seems unlikely. They've signed a new centre half, so it means Disasi's time at Chelsea might be done. This could just be agent talk trying to drum up a little bit of interest in him. So at this point, I think it's incredibly unlikely that Leeds have even inquired about Axel Disasi, but you never know. The window's mad, and we'll find out more towards the end of the week. As we say, 7 days left in the window. We'll have a live stream on deadline day. You can check out yesterday's Sunday sessions with myself and Alex from American and Leeds. And outside of that, I'm back tonight over on bigup.com for the watch along for Leeds against Everton, and we'll have the instant match reaction straight after that on YouTube to talk about that game, no matter which way it goes. Outside of that, have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.